Hello, my name is Dan, and this is Dan Explains. In my last two regular videos, I covered life, death, and how it relates to your soul. Well, there is one more interesting question. I don't have a twin, but if you do, I'm sure the question of which one of you came first has been a question you've thought about. If you have an identical twin, that means you were both once one embryo. Did one of you still come first? What if you had a fraternal twin and absorbed it in the womb? Is your other twin still alive? I find these kinds of questions really fascinating. Let me explain why. In my video on what has a soul and what doesn't, link in the description, I cover what is an individual organism. Please go watch that video if you haven't. Well, going along those lines, what happens when you have twins? Well, of course, if it's fraternal twins, which is basically caused by the mother releasing two eggs that both get fertilized, obviously, both twins start as individual organisms. That's easy. In that case, whichever twin was fertilized first is, well, the first twin. So, what about identical twins? They start as one embryo, which splits at some point. If you're an identical twin, which one of you came first? Or were both of you one person and God split you in two? Well, there are some rare identical twin types that can help us with figuring out this question. In rare cases, you can get something called mirror twins. That is, twins that are identical but are a mirror image of each other. If one has a droopy left eye, then the other has a droopy right eye. If one has a hair part on the right, the other is on the left. If one is right-handed, the other is left-handed, and so on. So, you might ask yourself how this helps us. Well, the mirroring goes more than just skin deep. One twin has a heart on the left side, which is normal, but the other twin has their heart on the right side. The same with the rest of their organs. Basically, their body is a mirror image in every way. It's not just a matter of being left-handed or right-handed. So, if you go back to before the embryo split, then you can assume that if the embryo had not split, it would have gotten a heart on the left side, a liver on the right side, etc. Everything where it's supposed to be. So, in this case, it's logical to assume that the twin who ends up with the organs that are a mirror image from what's normal is the second twin. Basically, the twin with all of their organs in the normal position is the older twin. The most common form of identical twinning, which is the non-mirrored form, is much more difficult to figure out. Almost certainly impossible, in fact. There really isn't any way for you to tell which one came first, even if you watch the splitting happen. That doesn't mean neither came first, although in a strictly scientific sense, that's true. Spiritually speaking, God created one soul before the other, but we'll never be able to know which is which until we're face to face with Him. Now, let's change gears a little to another kind of twin, something called a chimera. Basically, it's the opposite of identical twins. Instead of the embryo splitting, you have two fraternal twin embryos that fuse into one. Normally, the tissue from one twin becomes dominant, and only a small part of the absorbed twin remains, usually just a small piece. Do you know anyone with two eye colors? That's often a sign of chimerism. On a side note, sometimes part of your reproductive system can even be your twins, meaning you can literally conceive your siblings' children. Anyway, The real question is, if you have a chimera, do you have two souls? In the vast majority of cases, only a piece of one of the twins remains. I don't think that twin is alive, any more than an organ donor after they've died and donated their organs, just because there are still people out there still using them. So, at some point in development, one of the twins dies. Now, there are cases where the cells of both twins are more evenly mixed, more like a twin smoothie. Even here, I think you only have one soul. The blending is never that even. I mean, if someone went and replaced every other cell in your body with the cells from someone else's body, you'd still be you. Now, what if part of your brain was from your twin, or even half of it? You'd be using part of someone else's brain to think with, but it would still just be a part. Also, if someone cut your brain in half, there wouldn't be two yous. You'd be dead. Now, I know you have these cases where they say doctors have removed half of someone's brain to cure their epilepsy. Well, they aren't actually removing half of the brain. There are vital parts they are leaving. Unless you duplicate those parts at some point or another, you have one twin and not the other. So that begs the question, what if you do duplicate those parts? Well, that exists too, and they're known as craniopagus twins. Basically, conjoined twins that are joined at the brain. Oddly enough, they often share brain tissue, but they are still definitely two distinct people. Although there are no known conjoined fraternal twins, I think you get the idea. Even if your whole brain was your twin's brain, then well, you'd literally be living in someone else's body. That's an odd thought. Once you get to heaven, you better give your twin one heck of a thank you for borrowing their body all those years. The only way one body can have two souls is if it's two people. Let's tie this up with an interesting thought experiment. What if the two twins' cells were exactly evenly mixed? Like I said earlier, even if you replace every other cell in your body with someone else's, you'd obviously still be you, just with lots of donor parts. So, that'd still be one soul, right? But now let's suppose some new procedure allows doctors to separate the two twins' cells into two different bodies without destroying them. Then they can fill in the missing cells in each body by having the remaining cells divide. Maybe by using some kind of Star Trek like teleportation technology, assuming that doesn't kill you, which it probably would. I know this is obviously a stretch, but you'd now have two whole separate working bodies. Two people who would now be like any normal fraternal twins. Would the twin who died in utero then be alive? I'll let you go and watch my video on death, if you haven't already, for my answer on that one. If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people who support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.